On the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, ESPN NBA reporter Dave McMenamin, co-author of the book Return of the King. Also, he contributed to a very insightful article right now at ESPN.com, 3 days in July around the decision. A lot of NBA news going on. Of course, the backstory, LeBron doc went down last night. To get into all of that and more right now, Dave joins us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, how you doing this Monday?
I'm doing well. Happy to join you.
I'm glad for you to be on. So, one of the things I took away from the backstory last night, and I feel like, going back in time 10 years, kind of puts us all in that, like, where were you, kind of feel watching it last night. So I want to ask you that, talk about, where you were when all of this was going down with LeBron and the decision and everything, the whirlwind that was those few days around the decision.
Yeah, well, at that stage of my career, I hadn't covered LeBron yet. So I was a Laker reporter for ESPN, and I was actually up in Santa Barbara, California, covering Kobe Bryant's annual summer camp. And everyone, even though we're there congregating for Kobe, who was the elite of the elite at that stage in the career, just coming off a finals win in Game 7 against the Boston Celtics, finals MVP, his 5th championship. But all anybody at that camp were talking about was LeBron James and what he was going to do. And so it takes me back to that moment. I remember going out to dinner the night before the decision special aired and with some of the coaches at that camp. And, we had televisions on in the background, and Chris Broussard gets on SportsCenter and says, with a certain degree of formality that LeBron will be joining Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade in Miami, because that had already happened. The first domino to fall was Chris and Dwayne. But because we knew that the next day was going to be the TV special, and because it just seemed so like, I won't believe it till it comes out of that guy's mouth. Even Chris Broussard, who's an excellent reporter, I learned a lot from in my career. Even when Chris Broussard said it, you still didn't necessarily believe it until you saw LeBron sitting across from Jim Gray and hearing it in his own words.
How do you think the perception around the league has evolved toward LeBron? Because, I feel as someone kind of like the outside looking into the league, I haven't covered the league as closely as you have, obviously, but I feel like that a lot of the league has evolved in their perception of LeBron, not just the player, but the person.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, his coined phrase is more than an athlete, but he certainly walks the walk along with that talking the talk. I mean, the fact that he has made the I Promise School in Akron, Ohio, and LeBron James Family Foundation such a core part of who he is and what he does, and he makes sure that if he's going to enter into a new business partnership, with a Chase Bank or with a Blaze Pizza, with a Beats by Dre, that not only are you going to, support me for me to lend my business acumen and my endorsement profile to you, but you are going to get involved with my community efforts. And to me, it's created a new paradigm for athletes to follow. And it's also, in a way, changed how athletes are viewed in terms of 10 years ago, oh my gosh, you're going to leave the team that drafted you? Where's the loyalty? Well, I think Ron and now others that have come after him have allowed the public to have their mind open to the fact that for years and years and years, there was no loyalty being shown by the teams towards the players. They sign a player, they tell them, we want you there for 5 years. And then, a year and a half into the deal, I'm talking about Blake Griffin, they trade you from Los Angeles to Detroit. This was, just 18 months before that happened. They had a presentation at Staples Center where they showed his jersey retired and hanging from the rafters. So I think, to sum it up, LeBron has shown that if you use your influence and leverage it in the proper way, you can accomplish all sorts of things that can both help out yourself and your community. And also, I think it's opened some people's eyes to the fact that, just because for years we looked at it like, oh, the owner should make the decisions and the athletes follow afterwards. Why it doesn't necessarily have to be that case, because the athletes, are the ones that are winning the game.
Dave, speaking of that, we know that LeBron in many ways, took all of the fire in a lot of the things that have led athletes to be able to have they are today. And I argue that, for someone like in our backyard over here with Ben Simmons and the Sixers, having someone like LeBron mentoring him on and off the court, I think is a huge deal for a guy, because to me, if you're going to have anybody, teach you about the league and about being a player and about being a well-rounded athlete, you want it to be LeBron James, in Ben Simmons' ear, not maybe somebody else.
Oh, certainly. And listen, Ben and Rich Paul have had a relationship, going back, his entire career now. And sometimes it's Rich being in his ear. Sometimes it's LeBron being in his ear. Sometimes it's Tristan Thompson. Sometimes it's, Anthony Davis. There are many agencies in this league that have many high-profile players, but there are few, in my estimation, I've been covering the league for a decade and a half, that do the things to build a brotherhood and a camaraderie amongst their clients. Clutch, they have an annual trip to Toronto in non-COVID times, but in the summertime, the Clutch athletes all go to Toronto for a long weekend get together of dinners and drinks and working out together and sharing stories, and you see that permeate throughout the NBA season, where they pick each other up on phone calls or social media, and then get together when the schedule allows it over All-Star, or when they're playing each other's teams, and that is great for Ben, but it's also great for Tyrese Maxey, the Kentucky prospect who is now part of Clutch, and now Ben's going to be passing on that knowledge to Tyrese, and that will also allow Ben to mature and grow into more of a man himself. And so I have a lot of respect for their operation there, and probably none of it's possible without LeBron being one of the greatest players of all time, and that allows everybody to build around that. But it's not like people just feeding and siphoning off of LeBron. Now it's a self-perpetuating group.
Dave McMenamin joining us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Mick10 for all your NBA news, as well as Lakers and LeBron coverage. And speaking of the Lakers and LeBron, what do you think of this Lakers team as they're coming out of this pandemic, heading into Orlando? We know LeBron says he's ready and he's all mentally full go, but we know without Avery Bradley, the report comes out, they're going to, probably be adding J.R. Smith. That will be an interesting drama in and of itself heading into that bubble. So what do you think the state of the Lakers is heading into this bubble 8-game stretch run?
Well, the way I look at it is like the Lakers were one of the top 3 or 4 teams the entire season. Right from the very start, when they had a new coaching staff, they had half of a new roster. They had LeBron James in year 17 switching to a different position on the court they never played before. They found a rhythm rather quickly and sustained it. And so do I think they'll be clicking in all cylinders like they were in mid-March when this thing shut down? No. Had the season continued from March onward, barring any injury, I think the Lakers would have been the clear favorites in the postseason. But even if you take this hiatus into account, and yes, you lose a guy like Avery Bradley, who was a steady contributor for them, they're still, to me, one of the top 3 or 4 teams. And if they can stay healthy, talent wins in this league, and you have motivated talent in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. The J.R. Smith thing is interesting because of the history with him, LeBron in Cleveland. But J.R. Smith, if the Lakers have it their way, he won't be playing a major role. You're going to see Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Alex Caruso taking the lion's share of those Avery Bradley minutes. JR will be there. If you want to get a different look out there, try to get you a bucket. But they also have, Rajon Rondo to play backup point. They have Deion Waiters to play backup shooting guard. So he's just part of the group. But to me, the big conversation is that who are you going to say is, head and shoulders above the Lakers going into this restart? And there aren't teams you can point to. You can say that, a team like the Sixers should be in a better position they would have been because now Ben Simmons is healthy, and that's valid. But you also say that they had the best home court advantage in the league, and they lose that. You can say that a team like Toronto, because they've had so much continuity and excellent coach Nick Nurse, they're perhaps a sleeper there. But you can just get back to the conversation. The top level talent in Pascal Siakam and Kyle Lowry can't match with a LeBron and Anthony Davis. You say the Bucks, and maybe the Bucks would be the most worthy opponent out there, but they just haven't had the postseason experience that a guy like LeBron has. Giannis is maxed out at the conference finals and lost 4 games in a row to the Raptors. So, the Lakers have to be in every conversation you have about who the NBA champion will be. And to me, a huge part of it will come down to health, and that includes COVID-19 health. And beyond that, who plays the best? We haven't seen it yet from Giannis. We haven't seen it yet from Paul George. Maybe those guys have this breakthrough moment and they crown themselves a champion. But until that happens, I think you get to look at LeBron, the Lakers, and obviously what Kawhi can bring to the Clippers as the players most likely to lead their team to a chip.
You mentioned just a moment ago about the Sixers in the Eastern Conference. I know the Sixers are becoming a bit of a trendy pick as a dark horse contender. I know Tobias Harris was on First Take saying he expects them to have a chance to win the championship. What is your perspective on the Sixers heading into this 8-game stretch? Because we know that this team has barely had any games together, and even the players have admitted, look, we know we've had issues with chemistry. Do you think the Sixers can figure out that chemistry before the playoffs actually start and really make a run?
I covered the Sixers throughout their playoff run last year. The Lakers weren't in it, so ESPN assigned me, and so I was around that team a lot. And listen, Joel Embiid, when he was right, to me, looked better than Kawhi Leonard did in that second round series. I think he's as dominant as any player in the league when he's right. You would hope that he has used this time to get himself more right than he ever has before. I think you can really ride him. And I think Ben Simmons is as physically dominant of a wing defender as this league has right now. Offensively, I think there's still some holes. And I don't think they really addressed the shooting the way they should have. They just got the guy from Dallas who, shoots around 40% from 3 percentage-wise, but, I've seen him play a bunch covering the Western Conference. He's not someone that I put on the same level as a shooter as, some of the guys that they had before in a Bellinelli or a J.J. Redick that they have really replaced. But, again, if a lot of teams are going to be sloppy here because of the rust factor, I do like a team that's defensive-oriented to have perhaps a leg up where they look to be a better version of themselves because all the opposing in their offense is struggling. And certainly, the defensive force that Joel and Ben bring to the court is legitimate. And I think perhaps that gives them a chance to go further than they would have in a regular season where, everybody, as I mentioned with the Lakers thing, is clicking on all cylinders as it would normally after a 2-game season.
Dave, before I let you go, and I really appreciate your time today, I'd be neglectful to overlook the fact the reason why we are even in the situation we're in, which is the COVID-19 pandemic that shut everything down. What do you think of the league's approach to this? It almost feels like, if everything I read and hear, that it's almost this attitude of that, there's this new norm that, guys are going to test positive potentially, and they're just going to work through it as almost like an injury. Is that the right attitude to have, and how effective do you think this bubble will be in insulating the players from the outside world?
The only time will tell. I know that several folks around the league were, basically relieved that the number of tests that came back when they started testing everyone in market last week was only 16 out of 308 players. And 16 cases of COVID-19 shouldn't be something that anyone is feeling good about. But the alternative was, I had some league executive tell me that I thought there'd be 50 plus. And, while we don't have a cure for the coronavirus yet, we know that, people who are under the age of 30 and in good shape are generally okay. And it's something they can recover from. And so, all the league can do is try. That's what you owe it to everybody involved who has dedicated their lives to NBA basketball, to try to find a solution to finish this season off and then find a way to enter into another season while the veil of coronavirus hangs over all of us. And, to me, there's nothing grossly irresponsible that I read about the plan. Even the idea about Disney workers going in and out of the bubble. Adam Silver said on a conference call on Friday that there has been some talks about a subset of Disney employees who would perhaps have greater interaction with the players, maybe someone driving the bus to and from the hotels to the arenas, someone who is involved in meal prep, and perhaps offering some sort of financial incentive to those employees so they are not going back out into Orange County, Florida, where the cases are spiking, and they are remaining in the bubble in order to, limit the exposure of the players. I think that as being as responsible as you can. And obviously, I have faith that if they get down there and for whatever reason there is a spike in cases within the bubble, Adam Silver is the same commissioner who unilaterally decided to put the season on pause without consulting any of the owners. He recognized that when Rudy Gobert tested positive, that it just would not be responsible to move forward until they could stop things and gather more information. And I assume that if something similarly happened down in Orlando, as difficult and disappointing it would be after all the effort they put in to the plan, that he would do the right thing, Adam Silver would do the right thing, and just say, you know what, we tried, but we're going to have to wash our hands of this season and hope for next year.
He is Dave McMenamin. Follow him on Twitter at Mc10, ESPN NBA reporter. Also, we all got some free time on our hands, so why don't you go pick up the book, Return of the King, the book that he wrote with Brian Windhorst. It's a great read, a lot of great information in there about the whole journey of LeBron going back to Cleveland and winning a championship. As all guests, Dave McMenamin joined us today on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Dave, appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.